Adam 22 replaces DW on the No Jumper show.
I do want to send love and respect to my man DW Flame.
Shouts to Flame.
This is not an end of the relationship with DW Flame by any means. I do believe that he is coming out to New York. I spoke to him earlier today when I called him and told him, like, hey, bro, I think we're going to go a little bit different direction on Tuesday. I'm pretty good at judging people's reaction, their emotional state, whatever. This was a man who was not tripping. He was cool.
He posted No Jumper promoting content the next day or that same day. Though.
Right, and then we had to have a talk about that because the party promoter put the No Jumper logo like 3/4 of the flyer. Anyway, we'll get to that. But DW, him being on the Tuesday show was like, let's see what's going on. Let's see how this works. We put in some time. I do think DW definitely has a future on this channel. Shout out to P Nice as well. I feel like the Thursday thing is going to keep working. Him on the news is going to keep working. We're probably going to keep doing interviews and shit like that all together. But in terms of the Tuesday show, y'all know that I've always been looking at this like, you know, trying to figure out what is the perfect combination of people. And at a certain point, I do feel like in some ways, having Brick and DW on the podcast turned every single episode into like a Crips Unlimited meeting.
Banged out.
It was a lot of
banged out.
Crip dissection.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Because when it comes down, you have two dudes who are from very different places, but you're both Crips, and we end up talking about shit. It ends up being like a conversation about the intricacies of Cripping to the point where I felt like the fans maybe felt a little bit alienated because that's not necessarily what they 100% want.
Inter-Cripsies.
Yeah, they went to go copping them blue rags and hockey sticks out there, man. Listen to us every week.
Right.
Yeah. Listen, sitting me down with somebody from the other side caused me to lose it. I thought I was gonna be able to handle the backlash of us being together. I never thought that. And I don't give a fuck. I sit next to it. It's not my decision that you're not here on a Tuesday or whatever. Yeah, case I'm not saying
that was me, and I had that conversation with him.
Adam just took DW off of the No Jumper show and added Lush One. Now, this had been a long time in the making. I largely believe that DW may have been forced into the limelight too soon. And let's be clear, while he was energetic, enthusiastic, I didn't think he had the range to handle some of the subjects that would be mentioned on podcast. But what was interesting is Adam acknowledged that he was trying to like cycle host and find a way.
We try out so many people on this podcast that like very rarely do I like sit down with them and say like, this is what we're doing. I need you to be like this. I need you to, don't do too much of this. Don't do too much of this. It's more like coaching on the fly because I don't really know what the fuck people are going to be like on camera until we actually get in that environment. Right. But then sometimes it's like, you sit down with somebody for 2-3 hours and you do a podcast and you've got like in your head, you've got 3-4 things that you're like, okay, they really need to work on this. But you just had a 3-hour conversation. I want to go home. I want to smoke weed and go to bed. I don't want to fucking sit there and have another 45-minute conversation.
Yeah,
especially when you might not 100% be receptive to it in the case of a lot of people. Right?
I didn't know what podding was when I came. I sent you a text like, hey, anytime you see me fucking up, don't hesitate to tell me because, man.
And that is the best thing that I will always say about Break Baby is that he came into this environment accepting.
And sometimes you got to go back to go forward. And he realized that Lush, the person who played a key role in the downfall of the breakup with Figmunity, needed to come back.
I'll be real with you, just to give the people my thought process. I've been thinking about making this move since you first came on and did that episode. I do feel like, despite some of the stuff that's occurred in the past, when we were having that conversation and I was saying that I wasn't mad at you, that I didn't really like feel a sense of anger or betrayal or whatever, like that's true. Like I'm over whatever shit we had in the past. Maybe we can get more into it as time goes by or whatever. But like, I have to admit that out of everybody I know, I kind of feel like you are one of, if not the best conversational sparring partner that I've really ran into throughout my years doing this. And like, I really, especially we're going to
have a bold statement.
Well, okay. There might be like better, but in terms of like better.
Keep going. What you mean?
No, yeah. I don't want to say like Lush is a better conversational sparring partner than Academics or Sleepy Joe Budden or whoever. Like there's definitely like other people, but in terms of like people that have been a part of No Jumper, if you really go through it, who have I had better real conversations about hip hop with than you?
I don't know, Church.
Got nothing but love for Sharp, but I don't know that that's that's not necessarily what he came here to do.
Now, I was pretty vocal in my last video that I thought Lush One would be a terrible person to bring back to No Jumper. But the truth is, the man knows what he's talking about. You want to talk about hip-hop? He can talk about hip-hop. You want to talk about Drew Barrymore developing an alcohol addiction at the age of 11? Lush can talk about that too. And the truth was, he was just a good fit. But back to DW. Adam said that he informed DW that he was going in a different direction for the No Jumper show, and says that DW and Brick Baby being his co-hosts on the show kind of made the show more of a Crip podcast where they were talking about the same street stuff over and over. And now the addition of Lush One can give it more range. They can talk about music. Hell, even this episode, they were talking about Lefty Gunplay, The Undertaker versus Andre the Giant. It just shows the range. And as seen from previous podcasts, like the one I watch religiously, the Joe Budden podcast, it's about the things you can talk about more so than just focusing on one thing. It's really hard to do a podcast where you just talk about the same thing over and over. Podcasts are meant to go over a wide range of topics, and Lush One is perfect for that. Now, as to what DW will do after this, it's going to be interesting because this could very much be positioned as a setback. He will still be on No Jumper. He's still going to do the CEO podcast. He's still going to appear on the news, and he's going to do interviews as well. But he had a lot of learning to do. He's kind of entering a new role at No Jumper. And for me, as someone who was an outsider, I saw that DW was having a hard time at No Jumper when he was present for the almighty Adam 22 argument. And it was clear to me that DW was like laughing. He was just like looking around. He wasn't really adding much to the conversation. And I hope he finds a way to grow and bounce back from this. But it's going to take a lot of work. People just don't become good podcasters. Adam 22, Joe Budden, Lush One, even though he's not a premier podcaster, he has years of experience. He was hosting them King the Dot grind time battles. He has a plethora of things he's been through that allows him to talk about any subject possible under the earth. And that's why I think the No Jumper show, after having a rocky run since the exit of Figmunity, is poised to go on a tear. And another thing that Adam mentioned is the need for him to give feedback to the co-host of his show and how he needs to prepare people for the backlash they will get from fans. I know as someone who's getting backlash from the No Jumper faithful that pretty much fan bases, they either hate you or love you, and when they love you, they're already plotting to hate you. So we will see. It's really hard as a person who makes content to stay receptive to feedback. And that's something Adam 22 pointed out with AD, that AD, when he was on No Jumper, wasn't the most receptive to the feedback that he would provide.
I know you're cool with AD, whatever, but AD is someone that I put on the podcast, didn't give him really any coaching. Along the way, I'm start telling him stuff, but he already kind of had it in his head that oh, I'm lit. I'm dope. The people seem like they're fucking with me. So when I'm telling him the interrupting and the tangents and the main character syndrome or whatever, he's super resistant to that. And in a way, it's kind of fuck, well, if I had brought him onto the podcast and kind of told him listen, we're going to do a podcast every week, and then we're going to have a conversation afterwards about how it went and things we need to work on. If I kind of started out with it as a precedent of, okay, we are going to be working on your performance. Nobody can imagine joining a fucking sporting team.
Yeah, reviewing game tape.
Yeah. Nobody can imagine doing that and just thinking oh, I'm already dope as fuck. Nobody can tell me shit.
And I think my sports background kind of got me, because that's what you do. You got to study the people.
Yeah.
Even if you know your plays, it's you finna play them next week. What they doing?
And the statements, the criticisms that I had during those time periods, if you want to go back and watch the tape from podcast episodes that we did in 2020 and 21, the criticisms that I had are 1000% supported by like their Reddit now. Like their fans are the ones saying those things now about all of them. Like literally all of them. And I don't like to like throw it to the fans and be like, look at the fans are right, especially because like their Reddit is heavily like everybody's banned and blocked from that shit. So like the fact that that's still the overwhelming narrative, even though like a huge percentage of
comments.
Yes.
You know, feedback is just generally a hard thing to incorporate. And I think with AD, it was a bit more difficult, right? Because initially they hated him and then they started to love him. After that, he was seen as someone who perhaps changed the perception of No Jumper, only to be told by Adam later on that, you know, he needed to do more growing as a podcaster. But shout out to DW. It seems like he took this in stride. He wasn't angry. And also, Brick made it clear that he had nothing to do with DW being removed off the show. There was this idea that DW and Brick Baby weren't getting along. I don't think it was that they didn't like each other. They just didn't fit. Right? You can like somebody, you can be cool with them, you can say hi to them, but then you get to work and you realize I don't really gel with this person. When we do projects together, it kind of sucks. But now DW has a more defined role at No Jumper, and this is kind of the leadership that you need to show sometimes when running a podcast network. But we'll see. Adam brought back someone who's very volatile to No Jumper, and right now everything looks cool. But history might repeat itself in the future. And let me know what you think in the comments. I think the No Jumper show immediately gets boosted. I was listening to the show and it had a much better flow than previous weeks. But shout outs to DW. Hopefully he ascends. Alright, y'all. That's my video for today. Let me know what you think about DW getting replaced by Lush One. Let me know if you think DW will take things to the next level. Are you going to tap in with the CEO podcast? Are you going to be looking out for the other content that DW does? We will see. All right, y'all. Like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, stay safe out there because it's getting hot outside. At least it's getting hot outside where I'm at. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.